talk a little about your collaboration with Robert De Niro. I mean, it's one of the great collaborations. You're a director and an actor. And do you remember the first time you met him? Your first impression of him?
Well, the first time I met him was at Christmas dinner at Jay Cox's apartment in New York. Brian De Palma put us together because Brian was a big supporter of mine, and he showed him Who's That Knocking, and he said, you must meet this guy. And so we were at dinner, and afterwards we went to this little living room, it was a tenement. He was sitting there, and he said, you used to be with Robert so-and-so and Joe so-and-so. And he mentioned some nicknames. I said, yeah, how did you know? He says, well, I'm Bobby. I used to be up on Grant Street with Eugene. With Eugene? Yeah, and Albie Eyes. And a number of other guys. I said, you're Bobby from... He was 16 years old, we knew each other. And he would hang with these guys near Grant Street, who were a little more, closer to Hester Street. Hester has always been a place that was very tough. Even Manhattan Melodrama takes place there. Yeah. It's we were sort of like from Prince Street to Spring Street to Kenmare, and the church was there. The priest, my friends loved them, went to college. These guys were really street guys, and so we remembered him as the nicest of them. And I didn't know for years that Bob really came from the West Side of Greenwich Village. I didn't know his father was a famous painter. I didn't know any of that. I thought he actually came from the old neighborhood up towards Canal Street. And we remember him being very, he wasn't prominent with the group, but he was always on the side. And never any, he was a good one. There was never any macho pushing or shoving of any kind, or any feeling of discomfort, so to speak. And there was one night at Webster Hall in New York where there was a dance for the Italians who would just come over to try to get them together with the Italian Americans that were born on Elizabeth Street, and that were born in America, because they even didn't like the new immigrants, even though they were Italian. Hey, we're mad at these. And the whole night was wild. It was a wild night. It broke into a big fight. Of course, I didn't get involved, on the side there, because this was wild. And I remember he happened to get a hit, I think, or something. I remember, and he goes, oh, it was the nice guy, it's a shame, which is an accident. It was an accident. But we remember, that's one of the reasons we did the Webster Hall scene at Webster Hall in Raging Bull. And that's the fight in the background. We're going back to that time. But I haven't seen him after that, and I never really, we experienced some other stuff together down there. But you see, he knew everybody. He's the only one around who knows who I am, where I come from. He's the only one left.
So you felt this connection right away?
Yeah. But I didn't know I could work with him. Yeah. But really, working with him was interesting because he also knew me. He knew what the value was of, Charlie signing his loans. He understood that trust and responsibility and what that was all about. But he also, feeling him out on main streets, I basically trusted each other. Not only I trusted him to open up and add things and change, and he would say he wanted to do something, and after a certain point, he said, just do it, let me see it, don't even tell me about it, because he understood it intrinsically, he knew it, but also because ultimately there was never a threat of change that, do this, I don't want that in the film, never. And don't forget, by a certain point, in the 70s, he's a major star, and that's how Raging Bull got made, that's how New York got made, even that's how Taxi Driver got made. But even then, you're gonna look at your rushes, talk to you, whatever, but the final thing is up to you. And that isn't always the case with major stars. And therefore I felt the trust in, but I was always, you never know, a person changes. But I must say that all the way up through Goodfellas and Casino is the same thing. He naturally has thoughts and ideas. Even the last scene of Raging Bull where he does the on the waterfront in the mirror, we did about 18 takes or something that day. We had the last day of shooting, the last day, I think, in New York. And I wanted it less emotional. I just wanted it flat. I thought it was better. I don't know why. I just had a feeling, different reasons. And he did a range of it. And I chose, I think, take 11 or take 13, those two. But I think it was more towards take 11. And he liked 13. And so we go on and on about it, but every now and then. Then finally, when he saw the film, I had take 11 in there, and he says, "Can I ask you one favor? So, can I look at that take 13 again?" So we had the big screening room at Warner Brothers, stage 25, right? Screening room 25. And we said, "Okay, this is it." We went into like a Zen trance, because this was going to be it. You know, I mean, because maybe he's right. Maybe 13 is, maybe it's got more nuance. Maybe there's something more. So we run 11, run 13. He looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "I like 11. I said, "Okay." That was it. I come from a place where, you know, it's not that way with a lot of actors.
Yeah.
It's just not that way. But you needed to, you need to, with the actor, I think you need to listen to them. And if you're on a similar wavelength, as they say, you know, there's a trust that builds up. And that was the closest trust I had over the years.
You couldn't have known when you first met him. You had a connection, obviously, and you had a commonality, but you couldn't have known that he had this incredible work ethic, this dedication
De Palma told me, because he was in Hi Mom,
yeah.
and you know, De Palma did a film called Greetings, as you remember, and so he told me he's really, really very specific. I mean, when he did The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, which was an Irvin Winkler charter picture, which is basically Jimmy Breslin's book, a takeoff on the gangs in mafia gangs in Brooklyn. I mean, organized crime in Brooklyn. He played a small part, and he was a Sicilian in it. So he asked Irvin, he said, "Send me to Sicily." And Irvin said, "You got a small part. What are you talking about? I'm not paying for you to go all the way to Sicily to learn Sicilian. Are you crazy? You know, come on, please, Mr. Winkler, please." And he said, "No, I'm not doing it. Come on, go learn the Italian. Go learn it someplace else. It's New York, for God's sake. Go to Brooklyn." Literally, he says, "Come on, Bob, you know, this kid." You know. So he went to Sicily by himself, and he learned Sicilian. I believe he hardly speaks it in the film, but that came in handy for Godfather 2.
Yeah, of course. Well, we're gonna round out your work in the crime rate area tonight with Goodfellas. Let's take a look at if you didn't see this film when it first came out, and some people weren't alive when this film came, we're sitting here tonight, but because every kid on YouTube is doing, you know, these long shots now.
Yes.
It's no longer, I know, it doesn't have quite the impact, but this is not just a stunt shot. It's organic to the film and to the story and to the setting up the character and setting up what he's out for that night with her. And the timing, of course, is impeccable. But I can't imagine doing it.
Well, it was the actual Copacabana, and Michael Ballhaus on camera, who understood camera movement so well, and Joe Reedy, my AD, for many years. And you know, when Nick wrote it and put it in the script, I said, "Well, it's got to be a one shot, because this is the height of his life. I mean, this is really like being into the Élysée Palace in France to have dinner with the president or whatever, you know, with this sort of thing. To be let in immediately, giving money to everybody on the big screen, you can see his money being slipped everywhere. And I said, you know, you start all the way out in the street, you go through all these back alleys and all these places, and finally enter this the actual Valhalla of that world in a way. And the maitre d', who was the real maitre d' of the place originally, is there. He nods, the table comes flying over, and goes right in, goes in front of everybody. There's some guys next to him, and he says hello to. But he's treated like the king, or the king's favorite, and put it that way. And that's like being, you know, being like royalty in a way for them. And that way of thinking. For us, the Copa was the top of the line. We were kids, we got to go there. Saw Bobby Darin there, I saw Henny Youngman a few times, of course, he was always there. And Stevie Davis at that time. So it was late 50s, late 50s. And that was the height of kind of rough sophistication in Manhattan. In any event, the Copa Lounge was more delicate to go into. Manhattan was a major place with big players in there. They were like certain kinds of gamblers and wise guys and that sort of thing. We shot the Raging Bull in there, in the lounge, with the real bartender. Yeah. But in any event, this is like, so it had to be a one shot, so it had to unfold in a way into the palace.
So everything has to be timed to split second perfection.
Yes.
Or it's not going to work.
Right, we did one extra shot that morning, another shot in the Copa, and then Joe and Michael and I went through each place. We blocked it out as best we could. And then Michael got the camera in there. Larry McConaughey, who did the Steadicam in Hugo recently, he did the Steadicam on that picture, on that scene. And what they did was they worked on it for a couple of hours, called me back in, and we saw the actual stage A, stage B, this business is happening there, they meet this guy there, that's too much over here, you have to move this way, I can't, there's something here. So we worked it out mechanically all day. It took about 14 takes, but we got 2 good ones, I think, you know. And Henny Youngman, every time we said, cut, let's do it again, he said, I was fine, I don't know what the hell's the matter with this guy. It's like having Don Rickles there. But in any event, it was, we literally, I think by 10 o'clock at night we got it, you know. But it was really the detail work of the cinematographer, Larry and Joe, guiding me through. And then Joe put all that background action with their, you know, coffee. He said, can I have a butter swan made out of butter? I said, perfect, it's nice in there. Some ice cream. He said, how the 2 guys arguing? He said, great, 2 guys arguing. But so this is traffic, that's the actual back of, that's the actual kitchen. The hallways are like this. You know, I don't know how Larry did it to this day.
And the actors have to keep it fresh every time.
Yes.
or else it's no use. The tracking doesn't mean squat.
I know.
Wow. I don't know what to say after that, Josh. Wow. We're going to move up in time to one of your more recent music documentaries. And I read an interview with you recently where you talk about what the documentary means to you in terms of being able to have the freedom of expression that you don't always get on a $100 million movie. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's the form, isn't it? I mean, it's really the form of how you tell a story. If it's, whether it's a $100 million movie or a $10 million or $1 million, if you're telling a narrative and it's somewhat linear, I mean, you could, you know, I look at Drive, for example, where he's very interesting, where they're doing dialogue and then they're cutting flash forwarding, cutting fast to the scene that's going to happen next. I thought it was very interesting editing. It kept you very tense, I thought. Perfect for the subject matter. But I haven't thought that way. I mean, if I'm stuck with a linear story, which it's hard for me to do, I tend to want to open up and try different ways of, I go more for the character stuff. Like in Departed, for example, where we were stuck. We had to stick to that story. I like that story, based on the original film. But I wanted to go further with the characters. So every time I open up to the character, we forgot the story. The plot. What plot? So the plot, Marty, he's the guy. Oh my God, you're right. This, you know, who's the rat in the thing? And, yeah, oh my God, no, he thinks he is. So all of this going on, it was that was like wrestling with a, 20-armed octopus, that picture. Until we finally got her on the screen the right way, we thought. In any event, however, the music documentaries from the blues, which was really one I just produced, but, Clint Eastwood did one, and Vin Vendors, Charles Burnett. And the next one really was, they brought to me this idea of No Direction Home. And that's Jeff Rosen, who is Bob Dylan's manager and producer, and that's an archivist. And again, Jay Cox introduced me to him. And I said, look, I love Bob Dylan's music. I know him a little bit. I met him a few times doing Last Waltz, but I said, I don't want to get into a situation where we, I'm going to argue and fight with him. I said, no, he won't be around. So the only stipulation is that it's obvious that I'm not interested in doing something that is so derogatory or, the real story and that sort of thing. Who cares? We know it. It's that world. There's a certain lifestyle, But he said it has to end 1966 with the motorcycle crash. I said, that's even better. because it takes a certain amount of time. And I also love the idea, maybe we could explore this idea of why he was attacked by the groups of people, the folk movement. Why he was attacked politically, being forced, quote, to be the voice of his generation, where he finally said, look, I'm an artist, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And whether he's a, quote, enigma or not, it doesn't matter. And I think, for me, when he showed me I saw about 8 hours of this interview he did with Bob Dylan. And I think in the interview, we even used it in the film, he said, what gets you annoyed at one point, Jeff Rosen asked. He said, what gets me annoyed is people like you. He said, I'm never going to do another interview after this. So he got it all down, and I'm looking at his face on this footage. And I said, I don't know whether he's telling the truth or not, it doesn't matter. I said, his eyes are saying one thing, he's saying another. I said, that's fascinating. You know, let's see where it goes, let's see where it takes us. So we started to play with it, and this editor, David Tedeschi, who's very, very good, started working with me on it. It took us about 4 years. And I realized, too, it's very interesting, you can't talk about Greenwich Village in the 50s because, just mention it because you have to describe it then. Because many of the people going to see would have no idea what it was in the 50s. And how much of that do you show? How much of it is in danger of becoming a straight documentary on history of New York, all that sort of thing. So really it was music that took us through. The music, Hank Williams, Otto Wagner, Odetta, all of this, those early sounds, you know, we're drifting too far from the shore, that beautiful hymn. And I said, that's the music, let's stay with the music, let's the music take us, and the sense of what America was like at that time with images. And Deal also, interestingly enough, in Minnesota, I didn't understand about the cold, how cold it was. They said, were you a rebel? At one point he goes, Jeff Rosen asked, he said, no, man, it's too cold. Too cold to rebel against anything. Had to get out of there, it was really cold. I said, what do you know, this whole idea of rubbish, it's terrible, it's trash, you're a Judas, what did they want? And the question I guess, I can be articulate about knives in the movie, but the question I guess is, do you have to do what people expect of you? You know, in art.
Right. Now, do you find yourself energized by working on these films?
Well, that really kept me, yeah, that keeps me going, I mean, it's always a problem because we finished No Direction Home while I was shooting The Departed. Which was, yeah, that was pretty rough. But every time I look at 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, suddenly I was picked up again. And whether it was sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, I get home to be a DVD, I look at it, make notes, call up the editor to leave a message. Sometimes he was there at 2 in the morning. You know, he was totally at my beck and call, really. But the thing about it too is that we realized that they kept pushing us for release dates. It doesn't have a release date. We have to find this. It's not just because Bob Dylan. Because it's got to be special. I mean, it has to be something that once, you know, the great one was Don't Look Back, right? Pennybaker.
Yeah.
I mean, that actually followed him and went around with him at that time. This is different. This is something else entirely. And the music has got to shape the picture. And the conflict is in that we want you to be who we want you to be, politically and musically. That's it. And you're going to have to do it, because if you don't do it, you know, you're letting down the world. You're letting down the people who need that message. You know, that's interesting, and how he broke away from that. And they actually then gave us that footage of the guy yelling Judas at him. That's at the end of the movie. And I think it was at that point they yelled Judas, and he goes, oh, I forget what he says, something like, you really mean that or something? And then he goes over to Robbie Roberts and he says, play it fucking loud. And bam, like a Rolling Stone comes on. That was it. You know, he made a statement, being pushed. And it's interesting his reaction to Harrison film. He was talking to Olivia Harrison about it. He kept saying, you know, I was there, man, I was there. And he said, something about, she told me, he said something, I was there in England. Something, I may be wrong, of course, I'm quoting what she's saying, but him, I don't know, I haven't seen him. Something about, after meeting the Beatles and being in England that time, he said, okay, no, everything had to change, man, it all had to change. He got back to New York, you know. But it's fascinating, it's just fascinating. To me, the structure of the film is like music, you know.
What did you choose? What clip did you choose for us to see?
I think
The clip we're about to see.
yes.
Let's watch it on the record.
Sorry.
Okay.
Whatever it is, I kind of like it because I like watching it.
That's good enough for us. Good enough for
I
us.
think it's the one where he's doing the word games. Okay, right here. I must point out, of course, a lot of that shot by Penny Baker.
Yeah.
You see. But I do love beginning that part too with his play on words. Animal my soul, collect my dog. The guy just goes on, and when they were playing on stage, apparently Robbie told me that they were just literally, the anger was the screaming at them, and one of the problems was, of course, that the electric backup, the places weren't built for the sound yet. So it was noisy in a way, and people were saying, "Kenny, the lyrics were getting well, it wasn't really set up, for that." But the whole idea was that you went electric and you went commercial,
Right.
and you're no longer an artist.
Now you haven't had the same kind of anger hurdle that you recently, but in a not dissimilar vein. I can't tell you. I'm sure you've seen these too. How many headlines and how many sort of bullet point stories have been written in the past few months of Martin Scorsese making a kid's picture?
Oh yeah.
How the guy who made Taxi Drivers making a kid's picture? As if you're a hydra, of some sort.
Some have said yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I mean, I'm 69 years old. It's a different thing, and I'll say it again. I've said it many times, but it's about. I have two older daughters from when I was much younger. I just recently got married, and my wife Helen and I, we have a young one named Francesca who just turned 12. And when you have a child late in life, it's a different experience, especially if you're with them a lot. You find first it's like, it's wonderful and this and that, but then you have to do this, and then, it takes up a lot of time, and then you're wondering, and then eventually you start to really, it's not that they're there, it's that they become part of you. In our case, I don't know whether we're doing a good job of parenting or not, but we're trying, but the thing about it, I don't know. The thing about it is that I went into the fantasy world of the child, and the perception of the world of the child. Like, for example, if you're 3 years old, you're reading, See Jane Run or whatever it was, these damn duck books, whatever they have. Repeat the duck book over, repeat. The Dr. Seuss books are hard.
Yeah.
They're very hard to repeat. But she would then sometimes start to play a game and say, okay, now there's water here, we have to swim past that. There's all this little room. And you find yourself on the floor swimming, and making up, oh, here's a rock, we can stay on a rock. And you literally start playing. Actually, it's what you do when you make a film. And you get back to that, And so it became so natural. You get back to the original impulse that it is that you have to, with all the craziness, all the obstacles when you're making pictures, you still have to have that spark left. Otherwise, just getting it done and then dealing with if you're spending money and you're responsible for the money, and you get a lot of problems. And you have to remain sort of like on that same path and don't be shaken. And so the only way I could do it is to go back to that back of my head when you're drawing those little pictures, in a way, and watch, and then you see that they start to move, But in any event, it became a situation basically where we sort of hang out together, and I've shown her a lot of films. Her and her friends too. Let's say have friends that come over, and you see these other kids. They're believing certain things. They go a certain way, and you're like, "What's the atom bomb?" Things like that. Well, all right, we'll talk about that in a minute. And so, all of this, reading to her a lot, reading children's versions of the Iliad and the Odyssey, acting out the parts, that sort of stuff. But in any event, Hugo, by the time Graham King gave Helen, my wife, the book, when she looked at it and she read it, this is you have to do this as a child. The old story, as I said, about make a film that Francesca could see for once. And I said, because she couldn't see Shutter Island, she couldn't see Gangs. She was a hero. She's in Gangs, as a baby. In the rich person's home, She does walk-bys and Departed. It's terrible. Poor thing. With a Miss Kitty. You know, we're getting into all this stuff, but I found it was very natural to suddenly make the, it wasn't even a transition, you know?
Well, you're a storyteller, for crying out loud. I mean, I don't know why people are so, again, people like to pigeonhole.
Yeah, I know.
And you're a storyteller and a filmmaker. And when one finds out that you have a 12-year-old daughter, it just becomes the most natural explanation in the world beyond that.
Yeah, and it's very different too. I mean, I like to, you know, one time I think Robin Hood didn't go over very well. Robin Hood. I think if they had a boy, Robin Hood would go over. Yeah. But Robin Hood. If she likes Frank Capra a lot. All the kids like, if you screen her on a big screen, Mr. Deeds, Mr. Smith, and particularly, and this is sort of cinematic sin, but I must admit it, I never liked It Happened One Night. Because, obviously, I know, but wait, I've seen the light. Because I've only seen it on television. I said, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know, you know, I've been watching the performances seem strange to me. We had a 35 print sent to us, and it was beautiful. And it's a masterpiece. I saw it on the big screen. The kids loved it, because they liked the people.
Yeah.
They liked the relationships between the actors, you know. And Capra is very big Hitchcock a lot, and, you know, Ray Harryhausen, of course, you know. And what I'm doing is slipping in these films, where she sees new films, but her and her friends, I slip in these older ones. They can't tell, really, the kids don't know. They don't know that's old, especially if it's in color.
Well, is it true that Francesca was responsible for being in 3D? Did she really say to you?
Well, that was her and her friends, and when I said finally, I told her I was going to make Hugo Cabret, and they all yelled, "It's in 3D, 3D, right?" I said, "Yeah, of course." It's like, oh, grandma, the kids, and their parents. Oh, it's got to be in 3D, it's got to be. So I said, everybody's saying 3D, what are we going to do? I said, I love 3D. You know, I'm a fanatic about it. I said, but I never thought I'd make a film that would be in 3D. And he said, well, let's look into it. So we did, and we went ahead with it, the real 3D. We went with the Jim Cameron, Vince Space system. Yeah.
And you had this tablet monitor, right, on the set. So that you were actually able to see when you're standing there what it looked like, what would look like in a finished product in 3D.
Well, the monitor was bigger than this one.
Oh, it's not such a tablet.
No, it was big and it was great. It was great, and the thing was wearing the glasses, of course, because you had to, at times, walk around. Either you're wearing them outside, into your trailer, or in your car. Or a few times I did get mad. I tell, because we're watching the thing, and you know, I'm yelling, Jesus, what is he doing, Richardson? Because Richardson's a genius at what he does, as a cinematographer. And I said, my God. Can't he focus up? We've been waiting an hour. The thing is out of focus for an hour. I mean, at least focus it while we're between the shots because my eyes are wanting. Put your glasses on. You know. I'm sorry. Because you don't know after a while. It's very, very tricky.
But I mean, you plan so that every shot, every composition was designed to maximize the effect of 3D, which you can't do when you retroactively.
No, that conversion thing didn't work at all for us. We looked at them, and we said it looks like a pop-up book, which is nice in a way, but we converted at the end of the movie, if you've seen it, the Gala, the films that George Méliès' films at the Gala. Those are the real ones at the Gala, by the way. Actual hand-colored, the way they did them. That's the actual coloring. And we converted those to 3D because I know that he would have already been doing holograms, for God's sakes. You know, and also there is footage Serge Bromberg has in Paris of the Infernal Cakewalk in 3D. And Lumiere Brothers did 3D. You know, I've seen that. They restored a few of those. But in 3D, the conversion to the 3D really worked on Lee Méliès films, especially the Melomaniac, the one where he takes his head and throws it up on the music chart. Because it was black and white, it wasn't tinted, and hand-colored, it doesn't look really good. I can't really see the action. But when they converted it, it felt like I was on stage with them or something. You could really see the contour of his costume, and he felt very real, or let me put it this way, convincing and authentic.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, this is going to sound like a silly question, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. It must be gratifying having the enormous reaction that you're getting from Hugo. I mean, every branch of the Academy, every branch nominated this film. It means all the cinematography, all the artwork, every craft, you know, every division, they all said, no, this is special, this is deserving of honor. And then audiences have taken it to their hearts, and critics have too, and it's just a film that has tremendous appeal. And you've fought so many battles in your career to get movies made, to get them made the way you want, to maintain, you know, to keep that ship on course. And here you've made a film that, I'm sure every film has its struggles, but you made a film that people love.
Yeah, I know. It's not only gratifying. It's at the same time it's very sweetly melancholy too. At being older,
yeah,
and you know, the young one is 12 and a half. My daughter got married. This was something for them. And for everybody really, because it has a major connection to me, my own private life, cinema. So yeah, I was very, very surprised about the 11 nominations. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. And also about the way people have seen. I actually showed it. I had to go to Poland when we did the opening in London and Paris. I had to go to Poland to check, to visit the Łódź Film School, you know, which is the best film school in the world, Łódź, Poland, and say hello to Andrzej Wajda. And that night in Warsaw, there was a screening of the film in 3D, and I said, God, I was in Poland for the first time, looking around. I mean, we got there, it was 3:30 in the afternoon, and it was dark already and raining. And the gentleman who met us at the plane said, oh, you brought the good weather. And I thought he was joking. I said, oh, you know the rain. Oh, no, you should see this. Usually it's snow in Poland at this time. It's all right. So, you know, it's serious. Andrzej Wajda's films for me are so wonderful. There's Wolanowski, there's Polanski, there's all the great Polish directors, and the Łódź Film School itself. And so, you know, this is, and suddenly, oh, sorry. But basically, he's 84 years old and he's shooting a film. He was in his 4th day of shooting a new film on Lech Walesa. And he has his cane, he's shooting. And they saw the picture. They actually, I felt funny at first because he said, you know, it's very serious. Poland, the films that come out of here are so serious. And they've been through, everybody, Eastern Europe, been through such hell. And here we're going to show this light picture, I thought. But they were very moved afterwards. They came up to the hotel and he said, you made a lot of people happy tonight. Because he had to go to set. He had to go to the set in the morning, you know. And they were very, 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 very moved by it. So that was a very interesting development. I was very nervous at first.
Well, we're going to make everybody happy now. We're going to screen a clip from Hugo in 3D, real deep 3D. Please don your glasses. This is, I've heard more than one person say that they had pretty much given up on 3D until they saw Hugo. For real. Interesting. Because you validated it. Boy, with your website. So, everybody got their glasses in place?
Yeah, but I can't open it.
Now you know what the average movie is.
I know. Look, the reality, because when I was shooting, they'd hand them to me, you know. Look, I mean, they're working on, look, they're making it more flexible. We're working on ideas on how to lose the glasses, you know. I think it's really perfect.
All right. Here we go, folks. Hugo.
Look here. No.